Sorry, my last video cut off. Let's finish checking example 1. And I just want to remind you we're going to check in our graphing calculator. So our first step is we're going to put our equations into y equals. Let's put both of them into y equals. I already have the one equation, the quadratic, in there because I got the table. Let's go to y2 and let's type in the linear equation, x minus 3. Let's hit graph. And we should notice that the graph on our graphing calculator looks exactly like the graph that we created here on our graph paper. So that's a really good sign that they match up. Makes me know that I'm on the right track. Okay, let's use our calculator to actually give us the answer. So our steps are down here. Now we're gonna do second calc intersect. So in your calculator here, let's do second. Calc is above the trace key. And then number 5 here is intersect. It's going to ask you a series of questions. The first curve just means, is the cursor on the first equation? And yeah, it's on the parabola, so hit enter. Second curve, now the cursor jumped to the second equation. It's on the line, so yep, hit enter. Guess, it lets you move your cursor so you can get right to that point of intersection or as close as you can. Hit enter. And then here at the bottom, it'll actually give you the point X and Y. Now my calculator is a little bit off because of the pixels on my screen, but this would definitely round to -1, -4, which is the solution that I found here, -1, -4. So using your graphing calculator is a really nice tool to help you check. Nice and quick and easy. Okay, we're gonna do some more problems like this. We're gonna do the monitoring progress questions underneath example 1. We're gonna do monitoring progress number 2 right now. So I already have it written down here, monitoring progress 2. We have 2 equations. Let's talk about the first equation. This first equation here is a linear equation. So if it's linear, it's in the form y equals mx plus b. My m is the slope. There's really a -1 in front of here, so -1/1 is my slope. And my b is the y-intercept, that's the 6. So I'm ready to graph this equation right now. Let's get the quadratic equation ready, and then we'll go over to the graph. So our second equation has x squared in it. That makes it a quadratic equation. And to graph the quadratic equation, we're going to use a t-table. So let's use the formula x equals the opposite of b over 2a to find the axis of symmetry, and we'll put that in the middle of our table. So our b here is -1. The opposite would be +1 over 2 times -2. This gives me 1 over -4, which I'm going to write as -1/4. We can write it as a decimal as well, so when I go and I plug this into the middle of my table, let's make this -0.25. All right, to fill in the rest of my table, I'm gonna see what the table looks like in my graphing calculator and then kind of decide how I'm gonna do it. So go into y equals, let's clear out both of these equations. Let's just put in the quadratic equation from this monitoring progress number 2. -2x squared minus x plus 3. And now I'm lucky because remember I changed the table set in my last problem, so it's going to go by quarters, which actually works out nicely because again we have a quarter here in this one. So let's do second table, and let's find our vertex here, and I'm going to round it, so we'll make it 3.1. Now let's figure out how we're going to write down our other numbers. Let's just stick with integers for the y's just to make it easier to graph. So my next number, I'm going to go down to -0.5. The y would be 3. And then I'm going to go down to -1, and the y would be 2. Let's do symmetry here. So our next x would be 0 and y is 3. Let me scroll down. And the next x would be 0.5 and then 2. Okay, so I'm just making the graph symmetric and I'm just making it work to however it's best for me to graph it, but you can decide however you want to graph the points. All right, I'm ready to go over to my graph paper here. So let's draw our coordinate plane. Don't forget we need a y-intercept of 6 for this linear equation. So I'm going to make sure I have enough room here up at the top. Doesn't seem like we have too many negatives, so we should be okay. All right, let's start graphing. Let's start with the linear equation because that's first. Negative x plus 6. We're going to start at the y-intercept of 6. And then our slope is negative 1 over 1. So we're going to go down 1, right 1. Down 1, right 1. Keep going. And then I can go the other way, up 1, left 1. Okay, and when I'm ready, I'm going to draw my line here. All right, let's graph our parabola. So our parabola, let's start plotting these points. We have negative 1, 2, negative 0.5, 3, negative 1/4, 3.1, 0, 3, and then 0.5, 2. And look at this, our parabola is pointing down. If you want to add more points, you can always look for more points, but actually we can see here that these two graphs are never going to intersect. So because they are never intersecting, that means that this system has no solution. There is no point that would make both of these equations true, so no solution for this one. I'm going to go up here on my paper and write no solution. Okay, let's just double check and make sure that we got this right. I'm going to go into my graphing calculator and let's graph them, make sure my graph looks like this. So I already have the quadratic equation in here. Let's put in the linear equation, negative x plus 6. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Let me retype it. Negative 2x squared minus x plus 3, and then in y2 we'll put negative x plus 6. It doesn't matter which one you put in y1 or y2. It doesn't make a difference. Let's hit graph. Okay, yeah, so our graph definitely does match up with this. There's no points of intersection, so no solution. Okay, let's do another one. We're going to do monitoring progress 3. All right, I have it written down here. We have y equals 3x minus 15. This is our linear equation. Our m is 3, or 3 over 1, and our b is negative 15. Let's look at our quadratic equation. Okay, so to graph it, we're going to do x equals the opposite of b over 2a. Let's plug our numbers in. Our b is negative 2 and our a is 1/2. So the opposite of b is positive 2 over 2 times 1/2. That would be 2 over 1, which is 2. Okay, I'm going to put that in the middle of my t-table here. So let's put 2 in the middle. Now, again, before I decide how I'm going to make my table, I'm going to go into my graphing calculator and let's see what it looks like in the graphing calculator. So let's clear out these equations and let's put in the quadratic. So we have 1/2 x squared minus 2x minus 7. And I'm going to fix my table and put it back to normal because my axis of symmetry is an integer. So I can go by 1s in my table, or I can go by 2s or whatever, but I really only need to see integers for the x's. So let's go back and fix it. I'm going to do second table set above the window key, window table set. And let's go down here to the change in the table. We'll make it back to 1. Okay, maybe we should fix this starting amount. Maybe we'll start at 0. Okay, let's hit second table. And let's see what we have here. So in our table, our vertex I can see 2 is at negative 9. And then every other y is a decimal, and that's because of the 1/2 in front of the x squared. So maybe I'll go by 2s so I stay away from the decimal. So let's do 0, negative 7, and we'll do negative 2, negative 1, and we'll go the other way. This would be 4, negative 7, and then 6, negative 1. Remember, it should be symmetric, so it should always match up. Okay, we're ready to go. We have our t-table, we have our linear equation ready to go. Let's go over to our graph paper. And let's make this graph. So let's see, I'm thinking that maybe in our y's, maybe we should go by 3's because of our y-intercept here. Look at the vertex here, and our slope is 3. I think going by 3's for the y's might be a good idea. And we'll go by 1's on the x's. Well, let me put it up at the top because we got more negative y's. All right, let's start graphing here. So let's start with the linear equation. We're gonna go by 3's on the y. So -3, -6, -9, -12, -15, -18. So we're down here at -15. And then our slope is +3/1. So we're gonna go up 3, which is 1 space, over 1. We're gonna go by 1's on the x's. Okay, keep going up 3/1, up 3/1, and I can go down 3 left 1. All right, let's draw our line. Okay, we're gonna do our quadratic. Let's plot the points in our table here. So -2, -1. So here's -1, -2, -2, -1 is just about here, only a third of the way down because we went by 3's on the y's, remember? 0, -7, be right about here. 2, -9. Oh, and look at that. We found a point right there. So that is one of the points of intersection. 4, -7. And then we have 6, -1. And let's draw our parabola here. That's interesting. This looks like these graphs are going to cross again over here at some point. Maybe I need to extend my table a little bit more to see if they're going to intersect here. So I'm going to go back to my graphing calculator. Let's see what the next point would be. I'm going to add one more point on here. It would be 8, 9. And let's see, if I kept this going, would that be a point of intersection? Let's see here, if I went up 3, right 1, that would be up here at +3. Up 3, right 1, that would be 7, 6. And then if I went up 3, right 1 again, I can't do it on my graph, but it would be at 8, 9. So actually, I have 2 points of intersection. So I have 2 solutions for this graph. My 2 solutions are this first point here. This point would be 2, -9. And the second point would be over here, which we can't see. I couldn't actually make the graph, but it would be the point 8, 9. Let's double check on our graphing calculator. So we're gonna go to, oh, we only have the quadratic in here. We gotta put the linear in. So let's go down to y2. Let's put in the linear equation, 3x minus 15. Then let's hit graph. Oh yeah, we can definitely see it's crossing down here and up here. Let's use our calculator to get those points of intersection. So just a quick remind you, let's do second calc intersect, and we're gonna do it twice for both of these points here. Okay, so let's write down our 2 points just to make sure that we're gonna check the right ones. Our first one is 2, -9. Second calc intersect, number 5. So first curve, hit enter. Second curve, hit enter. Guess, you can try to guess, but it doesn't really matter. You can just hit enter. And there we go, there's our first point, 2, -9. We are right. Let's check our second point, which would be the point 8, 9. Let's see if that works. So we're gonna do it again. Second, calc, intersect. And this time I have to move the cursor to get over to the second point. It needs to be closer to that point when you go through these steps here. So just make sure you move the cursor so it's over here closer to this point. Otherwise it's gonna give you the same point again. So now my cursor's over here. First curve, enter. Second curve, enter. Guess, just hit enter. And yep, right here is the point 8, 9. So using your graphing calculator is probably the fastest way to get these answers. And I would highly recommend doing the answers in your graphing calculator. It's definitely the fastest, but you should also be able to graph these graphs by hand as well.